Every 4 years, billions of people stop what they're doing to watch one tournament, the FIFA World Cup. For most fans, it's a celebration of unforgettable goals, legendary players, and moments that live forever. But that's only part of the story, because behind every trophy, every iconic celebration, and every champion lies a history filled with shocking decisions, political tension, heartbreaking tragedies, incredible miracles, and moments that completely changed football forever. This tournament has survived world wars, witnessed the rise of legends like Pelé, Maradona, Ronaldo and Messi, and transformed from a competition with just 13 teams into the biggest sporting event on the planet. But here's the question: how did the World Cup become the most powerful tournament in football? And what are the incredible stories that most fans have never heard? Today, we're going back to the very beginning, from the birth of the World Cup in 1930 to the moments that shaped nearly a century of football history. Make sure you stay until the very end, because the final chapter reveals how the World Cup is about to change forever, and why the next tournament could be unlike any in football history. Because once you know the full story, you'll never watch the World Cup the same way again. Long before the FIFA World Cup became the biggest sporting event on Earth, international football was surprisingly limited. In the early 1900s, countries played friendly matches and regional tournaments, but there was no single competition to determine the world's best national team. Football was growing rapidly across Europe and South America, yet there was nothing that truly united the sport on a global stage. That began to change in 1904, when representatives from 7 European nations founded FIFA in Paris. Their goal was ambitious: create a governing body that could organize international football under one set of rules. But even then, a true world championship seemed almost impossible. Long-distance travel was slow, expensive, and many football associations were focused only on their own regions. Then, one man changed everything. Jules Rimet, who became FIFA president in 1921, believed football could bring nations together through competition rather than conflict. His dream was simple but revolutionary: to create a tournament where the best national teams from every continent could compete for one trophy and one title: world champions. There was just one problem. At the time, the Olympic Games already featured international football. Many people questioned why another tournament was even necessary. But Olympic football was controlled by the International Olympic Committee and was restricted by amateur rules, meaning many of the world's best professional players couldn't take part. Rimet believed football deserved its own independent global championship, one open to the strongest national teams, regardless of whether their players were amateurs or professionals. In 1928, after years of debate, FIFA Congress voted to create the very first FIFA World Cup. It was a decision that would change football forever. But turning that dream into reality proved far more difficult than anyone imagined. Because when the first World Cup was announced, many of the world's biggest football nations didn't even want to take part. By the late 1930s, the FIFA World Cup had survived a difficult beginning and was steadily growing in popularity. But then, the world changed. In September 1939, World War II erupted, bringing international sport to an almost complete standstill. Countries that had once competed on the football pitch were now fighting on the battlefield. Stadiums were repurposed, millions of people were called into military service, and international travel became nearly impossible. As a result, the 1942 FIFA World Cup was never played. Neither was the 1946 tournament. For the first time in its history, the World Cup wasn't postponed, it simply disappeared from the football calendar. For nearly 12 years, no nation had the chance to compete for football's greatest prize. Many feared the tournament would never return. Even FIFA itself faced enormous challenges. Member associations had been disrupted by the war. Economies were devastated, and rebuilding international competition seemed almost impossible. Yet football had always been more than just a game. As countries slowly began recovering after the war, the World Cup became a symbol of hope, unity, and a fresh start. It offered nations an opportunity to meet again, not as enemies, but as competitors on the pitch. Finally, in 1950, the tournament returned. Brazil was chosen as the host, and the football world celebrated the revival of its greatest competition. No one could have imagined what would happen next. When the FIFA World Cup returned in 1950, the atmosphere was unlike anything football had ever seen. After a 12-year absence caused by World War II, the tournament represented far more than sport. It symbolized hope, recovery, and a chance for the world to come together again. No country embraced that dream more than Brazil. As hosts, Brazil built the Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, which became one of the largest football stadiums ever constructed. More than 170,000 spectators packed the stadium for the decisive match between Brazil and Uruguay, with many estimates placing the crowd even higher. There was only one expectation: Brazil would become world champions. Newspapers had already prepared victory headlines. Celebrations were planned across the country. To most people, the trophy already belonged to Brazil. But football had other plans. On 16 July 1950, Uruguay stunned the football world by defeating Brazil 2-1 in the final decisive match of the tournament's final group stage, securing the World Cup title. The result became known as the Maracanazo, one of the greatest upsets in football history. The silence inside the Maracanã was unforgettable. A stadium that had been preparing for celebration was left in complete disbelief. For Brazil, it was one of the most painful moments in the nation's sporting history. For the rest of the world, it was proof that no team, no matter how talented, how dominant, or how heavily favored, is guaranteed to win the World Cup. That lesson has echoed through every tournament ever since. Because the World Cup doesn't always reward the strongest team on paper. It rewards the team that delivers when the pressure is at its highest. And as the tournament continued to grow, it also created something even bigger than unforgettable matches. It created football's greatest legends. The FIFA World Cup doesn't just crown champions, it creates legends. Every generation has its heroes, but only a select few have produced moments so extraordinary that they changed football forever. It began with Pelé. At just 17 years old, the '88 World Cup in Sweden. He scored 6 goals, including a hat-trick in the semi-final against France and 2 more in the final against the hosts. Brazil won their first ever World Cup, and football had found its first global superstar. Then came Johan Cruyff. Although the Netherlands fell short in 1974, Cruyff's vision, intelligence, and the revolutionary philosophy of total football changed how the game was played. His influence reached far beyond trophies, inspiring generations of players and coaches. In 1986, one man almost carried an entire nation on his shoulders. Diego Maradona produced one of the greatest individual World Cup performances ever seen. In the quarterfinal against England, he scored 2 goals that would become part of football history, one remembered as the hand of God, the other later voted the goal of the century. Maradona led Argentina to the World Cup and cemented his place among the game's greatest icons. The late 1990s and early 2000s belonged to Ronaldo Nazário. After the heartbreak of the 1998 final, Ronaldo returned in 2002 with one mission to reclaim football's biggest prize. He finished as the tournament's top scorer with 8 goals. For years, Lionel Messi was told that one trophy was missing from his extraordinary career. In 2022, after decades of expectation and countless comparisons, he finally led Argentina to World Cup glory in one of the most dramatic finals ever played, completing a journey that many now regard as one of the greatest in football history. Different eras, different nations, different styles, but they all shared one thing in common. The World Cup didn't just make them champions, it made them immortal. Every FIFA World Cup writes a new chapter in football history, but every once in a while, it also creates records that seem almost impossible to surpass. The 2026 FIFA World Cup was no exception. As the first tournament to feature 48 teams and 104 matches, it became the biggest World Cup ever held, setting new benchmarks for attendance, total matches, and goals scored across a single edition. Even after Spain's triumph in 2026, no country has matched Brazil's legendary record. Then, there's Lionel Messi. By reaching another World Cup final in 2026, Messi became only the second player in history to appear in 3 World Cup finals. Kylian Mbappé finished as the 2026 Golden Boot winner, reinforcing his place among the greatest World Cup goal scorers of the modern era. And Spain's defensive campaign entered the history books. On their way to lifting the trophy, Spain conceded just 1 goal throughout the tournament while keeping a record 7 clean sheets, one of the greatest defensive performances ever seen at a World Cup. These records remind us of one simple truth: every generation believes it has witnessed football's greatest moments until the next World Cup arrives. Because history is never finished. It's simply waiting for the next team, the next legend, and the next impossible record. But if the past tells us anything, It's that the World Cup will never stop evolving, and the future of football may look very different from everything we've seen before. The FIFA World Cup has been more than just a football tournament. It's a stage where unknown players become legends, underdogs rewrite history, and entire nations unite behind a single dream. The next chapter hasn't been written yet. The next legend hasn't emerged yet, and the next unforgettable World Cup moment is still waiting to happen. Until then, the beautiful game continues.